All right. So we are excited to see you all. Happy Friday the 13th, and welcome to the ICF High Country Friday program. We are really excited to have Melissa with us today. So looking forward to this conversation. Before we dive into that, I do want to turn it over to Mariana to tell us, as our chapter president, share with us the latest and the greatest. So Mariana, turning it over to you.
Thank you. There is some greatest and there's some not greatest, and we'll talk about that too. But thanks, Carrie, and thanks, Melissa, for being here. So I wanted to just touch base around the elections and the term transition. So since we've been a chapter, we've had a June through May term year. And so we are going to shift to a January through December term year starting in 2026. And so we kind of had to do this funky little 6-month extension. And many of the board members stayed on in their current roles or moved into new roles starting this month. So I do want to welcome Carrie in as president-elect. Which she is so brave for serving a 6-month president-elect term and then just diving right into presidency in January. It's going to be a lot of, getting up to speed very quickly on certain things. So I'm serving as president for another few months through the end of this term year. And if you look at the ICF newsletter or on our website, you'll see the current board of directors, who's in what position. And then we will hold elections in October, November for any slots that need to be filled for the January term start. So if you are interested in serving on the board, please feel free to reach out to any of us if you have questions. If you're interested, we can chat with you and put you on kind of a list of interested folks and give you some information as we start opening up nominations in the fall. And it is a 2-year term. So just FYI, you would start in January 2026 and go through December 2027 for that term if you were to join the board. Of course, if things happen and you have to pop off the board, we can figure that out too, but it is a 2-year commitment. And if you want to come in as president-elect, that is a 3-year commitment as elect, president, and then past president. So I'll be past president next year, see Carrie and the group through that, and then right off into the sunset. So just wanted to let folks know if you're kind of like, oh, hey, what's going on with elections or timeline, that's where we're at. We were one of 3 chapters that was in the Western region of ICF that were not on the January through December timeline. And so I believe all 3, or maybe at least 2 of the 3 are making that shift. So we're just in a funky little transition time. The other transition that we've gone through is switching over from Wild Apricot as our membership platform over to Star Chapter. And it has not gone as smoothly as we had hoped. There have definitely been hiccups and technical issues on the back end. And so it has prevented folks from being able to register for certain events, at least this summer. And we are so apologetic around the issues that we've run into. We are trying to figure things out. There are people working diligently on the back end to smooth things out. But for now, and Carrie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for now, if you do want to register for our special July program that we're having on July 11th, I believe that that's still going to be an email Carrie or anyone on the board, and we'll get you to Carrie to get you registered for a show and tell with the coaching professor, Jen Lara. So yeah, if you want to join that July event, we don't normally host July and August events, so it really is a special event and it'll be awesome. If you want to join that, let us know and we'll get you registered. And hopefully by the time we roll out our September and events beyond that, everything will be where it needs to be. And there's Carrie's email in the chat as well. So that should be everything for me, just letting folks know kind of where things are at and what they'll look like over the next few months. And thank you so much for being a chapter member and being engaged. We appreciate all of you and we want to hear your voices. We want to see you volunteering. So keep staying engaged. That's it.
Yay, thank you. The one other teaser that I will share with everyone, we're not allowed to go into details yet, but we can tease it up if you are at all thinking about attending the ICF Converge conference celebrating the 30 years of ICF. It will be in San Diego. Um, Look for an email on Monday because you might find that there's some details on how to register. Keep an eye out for that. If watch your spam if you don't receive it because it will come out on Monday. So just the teaser there. We're also going to explore maybe some ideas for if we want to get a group together from ICF High Country and how we might be able to get like a 20% discount, et cetera. So um, anyway, we'll be looking at things that we can do, but we've been asked to hold off on any real plans until after the announcement is officially made by ICF Global on Monday. So keep an eye out for that on in your inbox. All right. So with that, I know we are super excited to have Melissa with us. So Melissa, a former board member, Catherine's co-partner in the world of membership. So we're just super excited to have you here, Melissa. Melissa is an awarded artist, best-selling author, published researcher, and keynote speaker with global experience across several different industries. She brings a unique blend of creativity, science, and practical insights to career development and transformation. As a consultant, coach, and LinkedIn Learning course creator with over 30,000 learners, whoop, whoop, Melissa specializes in helping individuals make sense of multifaceted career journeys. Her work focuses on aligning professional aspirations with personal purpose, fostering meaningful transitions, and creating lasting impact. We are thrilled to have Melissa with us today for our June program and to hear all about your own multifaceted career journey. So, welcome, Melissa.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for that. And thank you, everyone, for showing up on a Friday on the 13th and in the summer. So I feel incredibly fortunate that you all are here. So I'm going to share my screen. So just give me a moment and then I'm going to go in here. I'm going to hit present. I'm going to do, and it
And
should be
it's
a full
working.
screen.
Yeah.
Is it working? I wanted
Yeah.
to do a full screen, but it is not doing the full screen here.
Hmm.
Well, can you
But
see
it
it
is a
well
full
enough that
screen it is full screen that way.
it is full screen right now?
It's
Well,
still
it's full screen.
showing the, yeah, like search bar and, or like the,
Hold on, let's try this one more. I'm so sorry. Let's try
No,
this one
I
I
more
mean,
think,
we
time.
still see a nice big
There
screen.
we go. Okay, hold on.
Oh, there we go.
yeah.
Yes, okay. I'd like for you to have a good experience. And I'm going to close here so I'm not distracted. All right, so it is such a joy to be here with a group of such curious, committed, and I mean, I want to be honest, exceptional humans that we call coaches. One of the most delightful things, and I have a former colleague here on the call, but she was familiar, very familiar with coaching and had been working as a coach for a while before I really began. And she would always say to me, the most exceptional people can be found in the coaching industry. And I think that really is true. It takes a certain amount of stamina and grace and energy to do what you all do. So thank you. I want to just say that today's conversation is really personal for me, and it's not just because I've lived this multifaceted career. I've lost count. If I write down everything that I've actually been paid for and have some sort of pay stub to prove it, I'm up to about 70 or so jobs. And I would say that I'm compulsively curious, and I've come thankfully to make a career out of it. And what I've learned is that meaningful work often emerges from mess, not despite it. And while, the internet will try and convince you that your why should be linear and it should be neatly packaged, and you can do little thought bubbles and you can, design strategy, design, think your way around it. Um, I'm here to really offer an alternative to you. What if your work is more like art than architecture? What if it isn't something to build, but something to shape over and over again? We're calling this session, or I'm calling this session, The Art of Working Through Life, because the title isn't poetic fluff, although I have been accused of being fluffy when I was working on my PhD. One of the common notes I would get back from my chair was, Steach, cut the fluff. He would say it, he would add an extra F to that. And yeah. But the thing is that it's strategic to understanding that there is an art to working through life. And I believe that it's the way that not only we live, but really it's the way that we coach. Um, and so I really want this presentation to really not only um, empower you and support you in your client and supporting your clients, but also perhaps in supporting yourself. So, if we're real about it, the career landscape today feels a lot like jazz without this kind of key signature to it. We're shifting and we're pivoting and we're layering roles, we're freelancing, we're caregiving, we're building businesses, we're, you know, on LinkedIn, and then we're ghosting LinkedIn, and then we come back on LinkedIn, and we a year later we're like, hey, I'm launching something new. And that's not new anymore, really, because we're quite literally working through life. We're not working around it. We're not working in spite of it. We're literally having to work through it in so many nuanced ways. And now, as coaches, this presents an opportunity both as well as a challenge. And the challenge is that our clients often feel disoriented and they're looking for certainty in this nonlinear world. And the opportunity is that what if we stopped trying to look for sense and we started to look for the story and our unique story there? If we start to think of this as our signature almost, like some artists have been known, if you were to go and x-ray their art, they put their thumbprint in something, or they layer or put messages underneath the gesso as they begin to paint. And at the time, hundreds of years ago, how were they to know that there would be x-ray machines? But this was something that it is innate in us to put our thumbprint on the world. And I think sometimes we forget that because there's so much drive and there's so much to be sold to us, so long as we believe that there is a mold to fit in and that we have to try desperately to stay within that, and that there might be something wrong with us that needs to be fixed. But it is very human. And it is also very real to feel a pressure, a social pressure to fit into certain expectations, rather than go for personal fulfillment. And I want to pause there, and I'm curious just to know, and I can't see the chat window right now, but I'm curious to know how many of you maybe at times have experienced in your career and pivoting through maybe a sense of maybe not, maybe it was feeling disoriented or discombobulated, or perhaps even maybe a little bit, I don't know, ashamed might be a strong word, but maybe a little unsure or perhaps a little insecure about a pivot you were making in your career, or some job that you'd taken on that you didn't expect to find yourself in. And again, I can't see here, maybe Carrie, you can let me know, but if you put like a thumbs up in the box, or a Y or something in the chat box, how many of you have maybe experienced that feeling?
See Mariana with her thumbs up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's not uncommon. Oh, there's the chat. Now I can see it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah, a
Andrew.
lot of, yeah, I see that for sure. Even up to feeling a little bit ashamed, yeah, or like you have to, and I have been guilty of this, feeling like I had to explain every single move, like I had to make sense of it for other people. Yeah, and that's really, if that's the case, then we're all walking around like that because I don't think I know anyone now who doesn't have a 5 to 9 going on or they're thinking about it, you know. All right, so thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. So here's my feeling of it. Don't make sense of the journey, make art from it, right? In my own life, I've literally been everything from an art teacher to working in a factory, working as a corporate strategist, working as a consultant and as a coach. And now, I've taken on a regional role in healthcare, behavioral healthcare design. And gosh, I've painted houses, I've waited tables, I've acted all these things, sometimes all at once. At other times, feeling very committed to whatever that career was at that time, and then figuring out like close but not quite it. And the thing is that sometimes people hear that and go, "Wait, how did you get from, being a bartender to behavioral health care strategist, but it's really, the same thread. And, for all of us, there is a through line because we are the through line. And it's about reframing what you want to offer, at that point in time. And it's not about making sense, but it's about really making art from your journey. Because if you were to list out, and I would love for you, if while we're going through this talk, if you were even have a notebook nearby and just doodle it, just write out without even thinking, like all the different ways that you've made money. Um, and I put it down to making money because there is some sort of exchange there, right? Or maybe for some of you volunteer, where maybe you have a volunteer passion that you treat like a job almost. But I guarantee you, you write them all down, and if you start to look at what's involved in every single one outside of just yourself, but start to look at what's involved in every single one, a theme will begin to emerge that will tell you a lot about not only what you enjoy, but what and whom you value. And that can be, when I put in whom, that could be as simple as you value getting braces for your kids, or you value having that extra money to take a trip to Europe you've always wanted to go to, or you value being able to support, a cause. Um, but when you see chaos as raw material for creation, you're able to then find patterns and connect things that are seemingly unrelated uh, in a way that not only transforms you, but it helps you to start seeing your challenges as a personal narrative of what you really do believe in and what really ignites you. So when we talk about change and we talk about working through life, art and science. So I studied as a painter formally for as long as I took going through a PhD program. Even went so far as to get into a master's program that I didn't go into. And here's the thing. All of my training in art really prepared me for my work as a researcher because when you are creating, whatever that is, whether it's you're writing something, you're creating a business strategy, you're putting together a business plan, you're doing research design, we all take the existing data points of what's been done and we connect those dots. And all of us, whether it's for building a business case or doing research design or trying to come up with the next new art offering, we're looking for the white space. We're looking for the gaps in between what exist. And this is about creative reframing. So when you transform that anxiety of, oh my God, what am I going to do? And looking at that blank space into inspiration of, oh my goodness, what hasn't been done, then seeing those data points helps you say, okay, so this has been done and this has been done. And then you get to work backwards, or you get to imagine, and you're able to work backwards from what you believe can be. And you get to contribute, as we would say in the research world, you get to contribute to the literature, right? And this is neuroplasticity in its essence. Um, and it enables you to really take on within yourself these multiple perspectives on challenges, which of course humanizes you and helps you to show up as um, a better human being. Um, so, it's about being willing. We're not, gosh, if you waited to be ready for everything that you think you need to be ready for, then how much would we honestly get out and do? So, think in terms of the fact that our job isn't to hand anyone a blueprint. It's really to help our clients and the people that we support really trust the dance between awareness and imagination. There's the system in the brain that's called the salience network, and it helps us detect and respond to what matters most in the moment. And what's fascinating is that this network works in tandem with our default mode network, which is a part of the brain that's associated with introspection, self narrative, and imagination. So when you say to yourself, or a client says to you, I don't know what I want, but I know what it isn't, what I don't want. What they're actually doing is switching between present moment salience. What is the most impactful information that they're getting, stimulus that they're getting in that moment? And they're between that and their imaginative self-authorship. And so, overthinking, it's not a flaw, it's an invitation to reframe uncertainty as creativity and progress. And so very often I know that I've, worked with plenty of clients where they're like, oh, I just can't get out of my own head and I keep overthinking and overthinking. Well, how do we invite them to see that as their creativity and progress? All right. I hope my chat box isn't up in the middle of the screen. I don't think it is. Okay. So, on this note, let's talk about creativity, and not the buzzword type that we see everywhere, but the kind that shows up in brainstorming sessions, um, or not with neon post-it notes and muffins and stuff like that, but talking about creativity as this internal strategy for navigating change. So again, when we talk about the art of working through life, we're not just using art as a metaphor, but quite literally, artists don't start with answers again. They start with the white spaces. They start with curiosity. They create by layering and editing and making bold strokes, and sometimes painting over what no longer works, what no longer fits. But they wouldn't have gotten there without that layer beforehand. And this is all about, career development. And this teaches us problem solving and adaptability and innovation. This is what innovation is. This is what resilience is. This is about being, not only unafraid of the strokes that you cover, you might go over, or things, the steps that you might pivot from, but it's about delighting in them. It's about going, yes, wow, I'm so glad that I took that unexpected step, because then I'm able to see now this step, and the path can reveal itself to you, and you get to learn all along the way. All right. So going back to this idea that overthinking isn't a flaw, it's an invitation to reframe uncertainty as creativity and progress. The same idea applies to our clients, especially when they're caught in paralysis. So when they're waiting to be certain before they act, you can help them through this by reframing it. So recognizing they're overthinking, helping them to think of applying a creative lens, and maybe everybody has some sort of creative passion that they enjoy. So help them relate it back to that. Maybe whether it's a puzzle, like which piece to start with, or quilting, or cooking, or dancing, whatever it might be. Gardening. help them to generate possibilities that can transform their worries into workable ideas. And again, going back to art, not just only as a metaphor, but as a methodology, when we use our hands, we're able to access parts of our thinking parts of our brain that cannot be accessed by verbal processing alone. You just cannot, because there's so much about human emotion that cannot be captured within language. And so when we encourage our clients to work with their hands, we're helping them to literally use the art of making something, of working something out, to help them work something out and work through. And it's always such a useful, simple, and honestly fun way to help work through something that might otherwise seem or feel impenetrable. So then let's talk a little bit about neural flexibility. Um, there is a researcher, Dr. Adam Gazzaley, who really dives into this, and he's been able to show that engaging in creative, self-directed tasks increase adaptive control in the brain. And basically, that's a really fancy way of saying the more you practice flexibility, the more resilient and resourceful your brain becomes. So again, creativity isn't a luxury skill. It's not something that's only meant for people who are talented or can draw or have some sort of fine motor skills in that way, but it's a survival skill in a non-linear career world. Is this resonating with anyone? Is this, like, if you put in the chat, does this make sense? Is this hitting you in a way that is like, yeah, right, when I garden, or when I'm, I don't know, needle pointing or whatever it is, working on a car. Maybe you're someone who likes to work on old cars. As a little girl, I could not wait to go work with my stepdad on some new car that he was refurbishing and get under there and learn how to work on the carburetor.
Can I speak
Um,
up? Can I speak up? It's Mariana.
please,
Hi.
please.
It's funny, the client that I had right before this session complained about her overthinking
Mm,
and how her partner sometimes calls out the overthinking. And we were talking about how it's a survival skill. It's a
mhm,
need for her. It's where her strengths lie in terms of strategic thinking, in terms of being deliberative.
mhm.
Um, and so I am so excited to share that quote about overthinking, and even this quote about creativity not being a luxury skill. Like I'm screenshotting those little quotes because I want to send them to her right away.
Oh, I love that.
And just kind of affirm for her what we talked about today, and how it can be such a positive thing within the midst of uncertainty.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, there are so many things that I think that we are naturally drawn to intuitively, and then we stop ourselves because it's almost like we're all being overly diagnosed in the media, because it's like, needing to feed that news cycle. And then we're putting ourselves under this microscope all the time with everything we do, in this constant judgment. But very often we do what we do because somewhere we know that it's actually working for us. Um, so thank you for that. All right, so let's talk about a tool that I like to, it's called Future Headlines, and it's something that I really enjoy doing. And so if you were to imagine a magazine cover in 5 years from now, what's the headline for you? What story are you featured in and why? And so what this does is this bypasses the overthinking brain and taps into the story, the identity, the aspiration, and even the unconscious values that you have there. And it also opens up a possibility where, you or your client might, think in turn, like, if, let's say, the magazine cover is headline is "The Woman Who Brought Healing to Healthcare Design," in untraditional ways or unforeseen ways, or why he uh, left law to change education forever. What would your headline be? What would be that headline, and then what would the story be about? For you. Um, the PhD who left corporate to start a flower farm, you know, and why, you know, roses are always best. I don't know, you know, it's like, and then what would that story be in there? You know, write it, have fun, make it up, you know, um, and give yourself that self-authorship, you know, to just dream and play, you know. Would there be, is there a photo that would go along with it, you know? Envision that, you know, announcing that future achievement, you know, work it backwards, create a timeline, you know, in the course of 5 years, she went from VP of HR to having, you know, the most well-awarded wellness spa, you know, in all of the South, and with a flower farm to boot. I don't know, whatever that is, you know, what would that cover look like? Is she there, you know, with all her flowers all around her, or is he there, you know, with like giving a deuces to law school and and out there, you know, showing, you know, that he's changed education, you know, in the way that we approach it. Have fun with it, you know, and you, it's not like anyone has to see it if you don't want to. But this is just for you and your own sense of delight and joy and dreaming. All right. So, furthering in the story, what you might find is that just when you allow yourself to play, let's say in going along with this tool, is you might start to see a theme in terms of what the values and the purpose are there. You know, whenever you're like put on the stump, well, what are your values, or what is your purpose? You know, when it's put to us that way, very often we end up going to a very tactical part of our brain and processing. And we're really stumped because what we're stumped on is that we're trying to find the right answer, rather than the embodied answer. And so these sorts of creative approaches, where you allow yourself to get curious about the way you've slowly layered your work. And let's be honest, I mean, we all know this, right? The statistics are out there. We will spend more of our waking adult lives with the people we work with, working to make a living, than we will with the people we live with, right? So, work is absolutely probably the most important creative tool that any of us have at our disposal. And so, what it matters that at a fundamental level, you are working in your core values. It matters that you are making some sort of contribution that you can feel. It matters that you are aligned, that you feel that there is some element of harmony in your life. And even if the job might be, well, I work as, I don't know, I work as a barista, and there's got to be more to life than making coffees. Well, if you take it a step further, well, what is that job facilitating for you? Because a task is a task is a task, but what is it that that task is allowing you to support, be it financially or through healthcare or whatever it is in terms of remuneration or compensation that you get? What is it? Is it, you know, getting you access to school? You know, whatever that is. There is an alignment there. There almost always is. And then that work identity, you know, how does your career express your values? How is it allowing you to show your skills, to show what you value? Whether that's apparent to anyone else really doesn't matter. Is it apparent to you? And you know, and it's something that it's also understanding that values aren't nouns. Again, they're, you know, they're verbs. So, you know, how are you moving through the world? You know, write that down sometimes if you kind of lose sight of it, or if for whatever reason you're at a season in life where you're feeling maybe a little numb or a little unsure of what it is exactly you're doing. You know, think of your work as a canvas for your value. You know, think of it as an opportunity to not just use work as a container for your skills, but as a place for transformation of what is happening through your skills, through your work. So again, there's this traditional view that thankfully I think we're moving away more and more from, but that there's this focus on expertise, that our skills determine our options, that our identity is static. And that there is this importance in external validation, whereas a more transformative view is your work is a canvas for your values. You're focusing on what is my work expressing? What are the tasks at my work allowing me to express? Are my values guiding my choices and how I do my job? Every job done with care and with love is a job well done. And that really emanates from the doer of the task. Um, your identity evolving, as you learn a skill, as you master a skill, as perhaps you move on to something else. Are you a lifelong learner? I'm someone who's constantly, I really struggle sometimes with the word expert, even though there are things that I'm an expert in, but sometimes I struggle with it because I'm so tied to the identity of being a learner. Um, and it's not one is better than the other so much as we sometimes forget to allow our identities to evolve in acceptance that we're always evolving. So yeah, I might be an expert in this one fine area and this one broad topic, but then if I move slightly out, then I'm back to the learning curve, right? And how delightful is that I get to evolve and dance through that. And then when you look at the transformative view, what is that internal alignment? So if we do like a little boost on neuroaesthetics, and this is such a great field, and it's really delightful to be able to be back in that. It's a real thing, and it explores how beauty and meaning affect our cognitive and emotional processing. And so one of the key findings in neuroaesthetics is that when people perceive something as beautiful and meaningful, their brain's reward centers light up more than either of those attributes alone. So, in coaching terms, when a career path feels both beautiful and meaningful, aligned, it becomes more intrinsically motivating. And that is the goal. And when I talk about beauty, I'm not just talking about something that's visually appealing. That's great. But there is beauty to be found in caregiving. There is beauty to be found in coaching. There is beauty to be found in any place that you bestow it. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder and in the hands of the builder and the doer. Um, and so just going through this, the neural reward is you're experiencing and activating these pleasure centers. Our brain is constantly seeking patterns and creating a narrative. The application is that then again, you help your clients to create these beautiful career narratives and what their outcomes are. Perhaps you're working with someone who may be feeling a little unmotivated by the work that they do. So, but if maybe I'm using an example of a client who is a career person who has young children. And I remember for her when we were able to reframe her career, not as something that took her away from her young daughter and now son, but it was something that gave her the opportunity to demonstrate the value of work and the value of agency and autonomy and showing up, being responsible and showing up to do a job well. Then her feeling of going away for work became far more motivating because then it was like, well, what am I demonstrating to my kids and how I show up for work? And she even started to take her daughter along every now and again to bring her along the journey. So this can enhance your motivation. This can enhance your resilience. And this is something that can really put a lot of fuel in an otherwise empty tank, which even for those of us who get to work in maybe jobs that we love, we're only human and our fuel runs low. And this is something that can really help to to fill the tank. Y'all hear my accent every now and again, and it comes out out of nowhere. And that's one of those words that it comes out on. So here's another one of my favorite exercises, and that is the invisible motivators exercise. And so what I do is ask people to list a role or experiences that don't make sense in their resume, maybe print out the latest one and just highlight them, and then dig into what fueled those jobs underneath. And now we're all pretty seasoned professionals. So I would challenge you to maybe go back to one of your earlier resumes, or have ChatGPT compile all of your resumes and do like this unabridged version, right, of your resume. It might come out to be however many pages, and work through it and go through and highlight the things that don't seemingly right off the bat make any sense. And then start to ask yourself, like, what was that job about? Maybe it was about you just needed to, maybe you were right out of college and just needed to make some money, or I don't know, whatever, or there was something going on and you're curious, or you're going through a big move, or whatever it was. And see what's there. What was it about? Maybe you worked in the shop and flower shop or something, and it was just about learning how to create beauty under pressure. Um, you know, Look at those invisible motivators, because they're very telling. This is where you can really mine some gold and name the story underneath, instead of trying to justify your path. You can help clients start to really own their path and really understand and connect with their values, and see, like, oh, maybe I didn't know all along, but I knew all along. Um, and even if things don't make sense on the surface, I don't need to know that they make sense right away. I can trust my gut here. I can trust myself to not steer me wrong. And there are times, like, I'm talking about this on a presentation, like, oh, I do this all the time. But let me tell you, I got to go back and read my own work all the time, because there are times where, depending on how well you know me, I might be in a corner, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Because we all go through these seasons and these cycles of, you know, why am I here? But that's almost always, those experiences are almost always born out of trying to contain it all in my brain. Um, and part of the wonderful thing about being human is that we have different our intelligence comes from all of our senses, not just from this one, powerful organ that we have. So this is about trust. It's about presence. It's about permission. And when we think about shifting to the heart of our craft, to presence, it's about helping our clients navigate a multifaceted career journey, especially one that might define traditional logic, so that they don't have to just come to you for a strategy. They don't have to come to you for permission about what they're doing, but they do very often need that outside voice, a trusted guide, like a coach, to give them permission to pause, to say it's okay to start over. It's okay to stand back and look at this piece of art that is your life and say, you know what, I'm gonna cover up over this canvas. You're not gonna throw that canvas away. That would be a waste, because then all that texture, all of that delightful learning goes away with it. But look at that canvas, and it's okay to say, I'm going to take some white gesso and I'm going to prime over the whole thing, and I'm going to try this again. But boy, look at all that texture that you've got to build on. And it's all right to be like, this no longer represents who I am and who I want to become. And I don't need to justify why. I just need to do it. And sometimes they just need that permission, and that reassurance that, yeah, you're seen, you're heard, you're supported, and you will be okay. Um, all right. So when we look at building trust, In compassionate leadership, and that's one of the LinkedIn courses that Carrie was referring to earlier, trust isn't just built through performance, it's built through being present. And it's so true in coaching. Our clients don't need us to dazzle them with frameworks. How many of you actually really ever use the frameworks that you have, all these toolkits? Every now and again, you'll pull out an exercise. But how often do you just sit and stay with them in ambiguity? How often have you found yourself really just holding space long enough for them to have a deeper truth bubble up? And it's again not about people being ready, it's about their being willing. And that also comes with your being willing to trust that there is a masterpiece in process. All right. So when we are willing to lead our own lives, we're willing to be seen, we're willing to move, and this is to move even before the map is drawn. And it requires us to be deeply attuned, not just to the words of our clients, but to their energy, to their desire, even to their hesitation. And so there's something called interoception, and it's our ability to sense the internal state of the body. And it shows that we know that the research on this shows that people with greater interoceptive awareness tend to make more aligned decisions. This is where visualization techniques can be very handy. You're not just setting a vibe when you allow people to be present or you lead them through these breathing techniques or these visual techniques, but it's really a neural invitation for them. You're helping them to tune into their own data, so to speak, not just helping them comb through their LinkedIn file. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that LinkedIn profile is going to really, really shine when they're able to tap into that internal data. And this is where agency is, and this is where we're really be able to begin helping our clients really be the author of their own lives, not just the agent of it. So there's a quick reflection prompt here. And I just want to ask and put in the chat, we have some time. What unexpected connections can you find between different chapters of your own career story? How might viewing your career as art rather than a puzzle change your approach? Maybe you're someone who enjoys tile work or likes mosaics. What if you view your life more as this like mosaic that, like with a puzzle, it's already determined, right? But you're just putting together, but there's a picture that's already been made there. But a mosaic, it can go together like a puzzle, but it's not predetermined. It can be whatever you want it to be, you know? And I'll just give a couple of moments in case anyone wants to put anything in the chat here. Let's see. Is anything coming up in terms of connections that you're thinking about or anything that strikes you in terms of different chapters of your career story? One thing is I frequently pursued the hard thing to stretch your brain. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, John, thank you so much for putting that in there. So would that say that maybe one of your values is that you're very growth minded
Yeah,
and
most definitely.
maybe, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I have my brain get bored if I'm doing the same thing over and over again. So
Yeah, yeah. And when you stretch yourself to do hard things, if you look at all of those hard things, is there any sort of theme within those hard things? Are there certain types of hard things maybe that you've noticed, or are they just kind of all over the board?
I would say the theme within the hard things is doing stuff that I've never done before. Every corporate role that I've had, I mean, yeah, I stayed in the same general career path when I was still in my corporate roles in general management, but I would jump from industry to industry as I moved from one role to the next. I would take on like totally new projects for the organization that not only I hadn't done before, but the team hadn't done before.
Mhm.
And then jumping into my current business now, never done anything like this before. So obviously was a healthy amount of fear going
Yeah.
into that, but I also did it and I've embraced it. But it's always in a way that stretches my brain
Yeah.
and is growth oriented, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Well, bravo to you and congratulations, right?
Thanks.
And in talking about like the fear, like it sounds like it also stretches just more than your brain. Like there's a lot of there's a lot of an ability or a willingness to be uncomfortable, in terms
Yeah.
of your social and state, psychic state.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that obviously you have to learn the cognitive side of it, like how to do whatever you're doing, but you also have
Hmm.
to learn how to become confident and comfortable in what you're doing when you don't really totally know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I always experienced that during my corporate career, but I got stretched in an immense way when I jumped out on my own and started
Yeah.
building my own business. So, and it was a different type of kind of uncomfortability that I had never had before. So,
Yeah, yeah, I can totally relate to that. I understand. Thank you so much for sharing, John. Um, and Byron, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, puzzle does tend to be linear and it has an endpoint, right? There's a satisfaction. There's a lot of satisfaction to be like okay, this is done, you know. And, with art, you get to constantly evolve it, and it's so subjective, Who's to say that it's done or it's good or it's not good, right? Like when you do a puzzle well, a puzzle done well is a puzzle that is completed, right? But when it comes to art, when it comes to life, when it comes to a career path, that's totally subjective, and so you get to, it's like what, John was referring to, you building, maybe building a business. When you're in like building a business case, working for a business, you can be a strategist, you can be an executive, but then you go out on your own and you're like, oh wait, I thought I knew how this worked, I thought I knew what this would be like, and this is not what I expected. And that's where the like a reinvention happens, absolutely. And I see Mariana, you put in here, approaching professional things in achievement-based way. Yeah, solopreneur, you have to step away from that because it is impossible. Exactly. Um, yeah, you want to sing. I'm a singer, but not a visual artist. So yeah. Well, yeah, you're an artist. Yeah. So exactly right with singing. I can't sing at all, but I hear you. It's like you have to, with being a solopreneur, there's no one there telling you, oh, you're doing great at this, you know? And then there are the KPIs that you make up if you make them up, but you know, um, you've made them up. So what is it? It's a completely different way of even being validated. Um, so absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing, everyone. All right. So we're winding down, I promise. So just to recap, um, when we talk about careers don't always make sense, but you know what? They make great stories. So, what we explore together here, why multifaceted journeys are a strength and not a liability, how creativity and neuroscience drive transformation, how to coach for alignment, not just for advancement. And that's always a really interesting question to ask to proffer to clients. Are you looking for advancement or alignment? Because sometimes the answer is advancement, and that's cool. you know Sometimes it's like, it's not entirely aligned, but you know what, I want to advance at this because I want to get to that. All right, well, now that we're clear about what we're doing here, let's go. We went over the tools like future headlines and invisible motivators. And going back, your career is a mosaic. It's layered, it's textured, it's sometimes messy, but it's always meaningful. And each piece plays a part in the bigger picture. So coaching isn't about organizing the tiles. It's about helping your clients recognize the art and the whole. Like Byron said, it's not a linear, completed puzzle, but it's the evolution and the reinvention through it. And so I want to leave you with, once one thread, theme, or drive that's always been present in your career journey. And even when your role or your title or maybe even your industry changed, ask yourself that this is a great time. It's Friday, over the weekend. See what comes up for you. Maybe even ask someone who knows you well. You know who's really good? If your kids are old enough, sometimes they're not, maybe they haven't literally been in our world long enough, to have seen you. But, ask like an old friend or your partner or a very good friend or even kids, what they think that theme is. It can be revelatory. So, as we wrap, we so often talk about careers as ladders and linear paths, but what if, you do, again, think of them as art, as a song, as a mosaic, and think about each, job, your pivot, a detour, sabbatical stretch. Um, Instead of a mistake, think of it as a tile. And know that, this career journey can be beautiful if you see it as a work that will always be in progress. So, keep holding space for the linear journeys, keep reminding people that messy does not mean meaningless. And with that, I want to say thank you for your time on this Friday, for being engaged and not, helping me not speak into the vortex that it can be Zoom. I appreciate you. And this is if you just click on this QR code, it will take you to my newsletter. And I'm excited to say that I'm pivoting it. And so I'm excited about taking yet another slight turn along the way, and perhaps you'll join me in that and I can cheer you on as well. So I'm going to stop sharing. And again, thank you for your time. And
Yeah.
I'll turn it back over to you, Carrie.
Wow, thanks, Melissa. Well, I know we had at least one question in the chat, but I also want to leave space for those that have more. So, Mariana, you were asking about the work that you do with the neurodivergent clients. Do you want to ask your question or you want me to read it?
Sure, but I wouldn't mind if someone else wants to go first because I feel like I've over participated today. So if anyone else has a question they'd like to start with.
I think it's you.
All right, that's fine. It's fine.
Maybe your question will trigger other people to have.
There you go. So Melissa, I work with neurodivergent clients, and they often have a history of perceived failures professionally or academically. They don't feel like they're fitting the mold, in their careers or in their professional spaces. And so I know a lot of my clients have that creativity as a survival skill, because they've had to use it to survive in a neuronormative world, right? But they tend to kind of hesitate, push back in using it when they are trying to do some career exploration, career development, because it feels like they're idealizing the stability, the structure, the security, right? And so just there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of holding back. And eventually we kind of get there, and I do a lot of the values alignment. We do all of that, but there's still a barrier there. And I'm curious, in your experience with neurodivergent clients and the work that you do, any pro tips to help them open up to a less linear approach or like embrace and accept that creativity?
That's such a great question. And I know from working with people and then having suffered from that myself, right? Being neurodivergent and being of an age where it wasn't as talked about or even embraced, right? And kind of having to figure it out on my own. One thing that helped me, and then in turn, when I started working with clients, what helps them is showing them examples, and not like not someone like Richard Branson, not where maybe it's someone who's like always a millionaire, right? Or a cajillionaire, there's nothing wrong with that. But also finding examples of people, because it really, it's a funny thing. It's like on one hand, and I believe that we're all creative, right? We don't want to compare ourselves to others, and yet there is safety in numbers. And I think when you get to see like, oh, I'm not alone in this, or this person was able to succeed in whatever it is that they're doing, it really brings a lot of solace, and it also helps to go, okay, I'll be all right too.
Yeah, and I like that, like maybe having a curated kind of list,
Mhm.
right, of those stories. Again, the
Mhm.
stories, the
Stories.
signatures
Yeah.
of those folks. I know Tracy Otsuka, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the name of her podcast right now, but it's an awesome ADHD podcast.
Mhm.
She brings on a lot of, it's primarily women, and she
Yeah.
brings on a lot of really awesome and successful women in a variety of fields
Yeah.
with different definitions of success. And so I love the idea of even pulling some of those, having those on hand, and then kind of tailoring it to specific clients and
Yeah.
matching their values so that they can really truly see this person is very similar to me, and yet. So
Yeah.
that's a great idea, is having those examples, but yeah, not just the Richard Bransons and the Simone
Yeah.
Biles, and the
Yeah.
Michael Phelps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure. Thank you.
What were the I know you shared some of this, but what were some of the connectors you have seen and felt in your own life, especially as you are embarking on a new journey yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. What I find is that my three main themes are I get really excited about people, about work, and about art, honestly. Um, and I know like people get weird about, but I love work. Like I love it. And I have since I was a kid. Like I've always like I used to play office and my mom laughs and she said the only thing you've ever wanted all your life is a personal assistant. Like I was and like that's not possible. Like that's not as popular anymore, but and I was like, oh, but I would like shuffle papers around, but then I would like create, I would sell because I was a good artist as a kid, and I would draw race cars and sell them for a quarter. And if you wanted a superhero to go with it, that was 50 cents, and they would be customized. And so it was always, but I would never just make art. I was always making art and then I was selling the art. And then I had a little office that I would play that I would do at home, and I have my home office. So anyway, all that to say, um, and so what's interesting in this newest iteration is that the entire reason that I ended up going and getting my PhD is because growing up in housing projects, I had the great benefit to some degree of living through a gentrification before it was really a thing and seeing how the community not being involved and some of the decisions that were made about the nicer things, how the community really didn't accept it or embrace it. And it got me very curious at a young age without having the words for it. But what was that disconnect with having something nice and wanting something nice, but then not caring for something nice? And as I got older, I started to become really interested in collective self confidence and self-efficacy, then being an artist and always doing community work and going on and on and on, and then with the psychology and the impact of the built environment, and then becoming a coach and getting certified and really understanding how to show up and be present for people and see the common drivers and not just see them intellectually but really be present for them, and now to come full circle, and to be working in specific design for behavioral health, and to really be working in regard to how does this space and how we exist in it and how it looks and feels and acts, how it can literally ameliorate very high acuity environments, like really intense environments. And so it's come full circle. And what does it come back to? People, work, art, without me even planning it. Like literally could not have planned it, you know?
That's cool.
It kind of gives you chills. And I know that everybody has this. I know for a fact everybody has this if you take time to just kind of look and just like, and when I say take time, not like I'm going to block out 3 hours from my day, but just kind of put the thought in motion and let it percolate,
Nice.
Yeah.
Any final questions for Melissa?
Well, thanks for staying on and staying
Mm.
awake.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for being here. Just we love having you, so really appreciate that so much. Nuggets, and I love all the quotes. There was a request for the slides, so I'll sync up with you
Okay.
after in case you want to share those.
Yeah,
If it's
for
the
sure.
same link or something different, yeah, you might want
Yeah.
to.
Oh, and those quotes, the reason there's no person there is because those are all me. I went through and they're out of my materials. So feel free to quote me up. Hey.
They were beautiful little nuggets. Yes.
Thank you. They're from all my different little things that I've done over time. So thank you. Well, thank you again. It's
Yeah.
such an honor. Thank you.
And I think we have the form link corrected, so it's now open for anyone outside of ICF High Country to access. That form for the survey will kick off. It's a short survey. It'll also kick off the email that gets you the link to the recording, Melissa slides, and then also your CCEU certificate, point 0.5 core competencies, 1.0 for RD. And I know that, starting in November, you won't have to have the certificate, but if you're like me, it's good to have it, keep it in case you're audited, because when you're audited and then you got to find everything, you can actually continue to put them in the tool. But the important thing is keep those certificates. So fill out your survey. That will kick off the prompt. And the final thing, Mariana mentioned this at the beginning, but I'm going to mention it one more time. We do have a special summer session, it's Friday, July 11th. Jen Lara is a coach at Anne Arundel Community College. She's the coaching professor is her name. She went on sabbatical, traveled the world, talked to coaches all around the world, and she is putting together her report of what are some of the trends that we need to be keeping in mind and thinking about. The first 30 minutes of the session will be her sharing some of those trends at a high level, and the last 30 minutes will be you telling her where you want to dive deeper, and she'll go deeper. So it's a fun, just hear about the trends, summer session. So bring your favorite lemonade or summer drink and come join us on July 11th. Please send me an email, programs@icfhighcountry.org, and I will send you the invite. So great to see everyone. Happy summertime. Thank you for being here. Thank you again, Melissa, and hope to see you all in July. Yay.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone.